To I.I.M.U.N, our main idea of I.I.M.U.N is to spread the idea of India amongst young people. We do this in different cities across the country and different parts across the world. There are 34,000 plus speakers who've come to I.I.M.U.N. I've had the good fortune of meeting many of them, from prime ministers to Nobel laureates, Academy Award winners, different people across different walks of life who've come and spoken at I.I.M.U.N. But when you talk about spreading the idea of India, even if it is a prime minister, or even if it is a really cool Bollywood actor who is putting on the garb of saying, look, this is what you should do for India, that is on one side for me. And then there are those who are on the other side, who actually sacrifice themselves, their life, and everything that they hold dear because they're spending time on the front lines, putting their life on the line for the country. These are people that you celebrate when you see Operation Sindoor. These are people that we celebrate when we see Vicky Kaushal saying, "House the Josh." But there are very few rare opportunities for you and me to interact with some of these people. And to be able to interact with a soldier of any rank is a great privilege. Leave aside a person who served for longer than I've been alive. He's been commissioned into the Indian Army much before, like I said, I was born, and then held very many positions, commanding different divisions from the east to the west. The last two designations that he had in the Indian Army were Vice Chief of Staff, and therefore it gives me great pleasure and privilege to start the role model series by introducing and telling you that the first guest that we have for the 10th edition is none other than the 29th Chief of Indian Army Staff, General Manoj Pande. Firstly, sir, thank you for doing this. Thank you for coming and being a part of the role model series.
Thank you, Rishabh. Thank you. Thanks for the invite. It's always a pleasure to be here, and I'm feeling enthusiastic. It's to see the positivity, the energy in this hall.
Right.
So it's great to be here once again.
No, thank you so much. And one of the things that I must tell you before I start is we were ready at 8:10. I walked in, sir, and the cameras were being set up. And usually we start at, instead of when we say 8:30, Indian Standard Time is normally, matlab 8:45, 8:50 tak chalu ho jayega, sir. But when I came in, the first thing I went to the person who was backstage and I said, it's okay if the cameras are not set up. It's okay if we don't have anything done. But he's from the army. 8:30 on stage means 8:30 he will be ready backstage. I may talk for 5 minutes extra to calm the audience and to excite them, but he is going to be here at 8:30, so we can't have any major delay this time. So the guy who was standing backstage looked at me and said, Rishabh, so I said, the last time I was late for 2 minutes, and I'll just quickly say this, General VP Malik, who's a part of our board, and the first time he traveled with me, at 5:30 in the morning, he said, we'll have breakfast. Sir came down for breakfast at 5:30. Sir, I reached at 5:32, dressed like this, always shabby. And sir was dressed like that, always, prim and proper. And at 5:32, he looked at me and he said, Rishabh, you're late. And then he gave me a lecture because he's like my grandfather, he's my grandfather's age. So then he gave me a lecture saying, so you are teaching students how to be disciplined. Since then I remembered, if we have anyone from the Indian Army, or if we have anything in I.I.M.U.N that we're doing, we always have to be, for an 8:30 start, we have to be ready at 8:29. So thank you for cooperating because we filled you in really fast, and thank you to all the people who are standing in the man aisles. But most importantly, thanks to him and people like him who actually do this.
So, Rishabh, I think time is not only important for the army person or soldiers. I think we all need to value time.
Correct.
Right? Because it's precious, and we need to utilize time correctly. Beyond time, that's what we follow in the military, yeah? Okay.
And you follow that, sir, and you follow a lot of discipline, which is why all of the people, the boys and girls who were sleeping slightly, they were like this on the first row. I said, sit like this now. The boys looking at me now. And the idea that you've come is great, but we need to, for a second, please appreciate and applaud the person who spent all her life with him whilst he was serving the country. She's selflessly, so having been in a relationship, it's always difficult because the girl's always asking for time, right? And sir is always or vice versa. And ma'am has been with sir right through and supported him right through his career. And now she's joined us today. So thank you so much, ma'am, for coming. A huge round of applause for her, please. But let me start, sir, by asking you the first question, sir. What got you to join the army? How did you decide that this is going to be something that you're going to do?
Well, Rishabh, I must tell those present here, I came from a sort of non-military background. So there was nobody in the family who was from the military. I didn't study in any of the sort of military schools or Sainik schools, or for that matter, any public school, right? So I studied in an average Kendriya Vidyalaya, those days, central school we would call, and came from a average, I would say, middle class family. And I came from Nagpur, that's where I grew up. My father was a teacher. So we went to this central school, which was in the Air Force campus, in the Air Force premises. And when you went there, you had friends, children who came from military background. You had wards of Air Force personnel, you had wards of army people. So when you saw them, things were so organized. Like you said, things were disciplined, they would come in time, they were properly dressed, they would play games, they were confident, they were good at studies. So I thought you saw children who were well-rounded. So that is what actually inspired me, motivated me, and to see even soldiers, the way they dressed in their uniform, their conduct, when somebody is watching, somebody is not watching. So I think that was the inspiration for me to join the army. NDA in those days, I joined NDA at the age of 17. And then it was the parents who supported me, and they just told me, you do what you like. And that is what actually inspired me. And when it came to choose between the Air Force, Navy, and the Army, so why Army?
Correct.
Because I always enjoyed, being with soldiers. Dealing with men, I thought was a different thrill,
Right.
great satisfaction. Even at that young age, as against flying an aircraft, well, you need a different skill set, but you're only master of that machine. But in the army, you're dealing with soldiers, you're dealing with lives. So that is what
Attracted you to the Indian Army.
Absolutely, that's right. Yeah.
And so from Kendriya Vidyalaya all the way to the Indian Military Academy, your journey, I'm sure, has been very fulfilling. But one of the things that I wanted to ask you is that after being commissioned, if I'm not wrong, you took a small detour and then you studied civil engineering. So, sir, we understood how you got into the army, but what got you to studying civil engineering after joining the army?
Right, so this was something which was, though I was good at studies, I must upfront tell you this. But when I joined Pune NDA, so in Pune we have the Corps of Engineers, our regimental center called the Bombay Sappers. Pune was a nice city, or is a nice city. The Bombay Sappers Center is there, that is the alma mater. So I thought, why not engineers, Corps of Engineers? They also did a lot of other activities, sailing, rowing, adventure, within the army. So I thought this was a good way, and it was purely that reason that made me join the Corps of Engineers.
Corps of Engineers. I want to ask you, saying, did your parents persuade you to do it, or was it entirely your choice?
No, it's entirely my choice. And I was happy, I was glad, or I was lucky that they told me, you pursue whatever you decide to do, and they supported me right throughout the career.
So, sir, can I ask you something slightly? How do you convince, your parents were very supportive. When I started I.I.M.U.N, my parents were wondering, saying, what are you doing? even today they are wondering, what am I doing? But on a lighter note, but sir, of course they're very supportive now. But I'm sure there are very many of us, and we want to pursue something, and our parents may not agree to it. So what would your advice be, say, to a young person as to how do they convince their parents, just in case they are not always on board?
I think it would have been better if I were to be speaking to parents and advise them as to what must be their approach. But what I feel is children these days are very well aware of what is good for them, right? Professionally, which are those areas in which they can excel.
Correct.
So I think it is thereafter for the parents to support them. And unlike in the yesteryears where you joined, let us say, one stream, you had to continue there. If you did engineering, you had to do engineering. But these days I find children, you start with engineering, you do something else, you then become an investment banker or vice versa.
Correct.
Right? Because these are the opportunities. It also shows as to how children of today are confident. Otherwise,
Very
the
confident, sir.
conventional wisdom was you continue in one stream, you maintain that. So, yeah, and I think the parents, their outlook, the approach is also changed. And I find today's parents are more understanding. They realize that the opportunities that are there.
Are.
And I'm convinced that these days parents' outlook, they're more supportive than perhaps earlier. Those days it was either you became a doctor or an engineer or something else.
Or a chartered accountant.
Yes.
Lawyer or chartered
Yeah.
accountant.
Or joined a bank,
Right.
but no longer. There are so many avenues, so many opportunities for the youth of today, especially the way India is progressing. So I feel sky is the limit. So, yeah.
Correct. So, you spoke about confidence, sir, and you spoke about young India being confident. If I may just slightly digress and ask you, confidence and overconfidence, I found in my interactions, and even with me, as I look at myself as an 18-year-old, and even today sometimes, that there's a very thin line between confidence and overconfidence. And as Gen Z, and as young people, sometimes we disagree with what our parents say, what our teachers say. We want to tell them that do this according to so and so. So you've served at the highest position in the Indian Army. You've had to be a part of a larger system with the Prime Minister, with different people who are a part of the process. There would have been decisions or there would have been times where you would have had to tell the Prime Minister and other people also, saying that, this is what you wanted to do. And sometimes it gets construed, especially when you're young, and you look like this or you look like this. Sometimes it gets construed saying that you are overconfident and brash. So how do you communicate effectively to a person who is very senior, your perspective, without coming across as overconfident and brash and disrespectful?
Right. So what I would say is disagreements or having a different view, different opinion is a natural phenomenon. This happens in our families.
Correct.
This can happen in your professional lives when you disagree with your boss. This happens in a friend circle.
Correct.
It will be very rare that all of us agree on a single thing. So disagreements are quite natural. In fact, I feel it's a healthy sign because no view is perfect. There has to be a contrarian view.
Correct.
And for any good leader, what is important is you listen to both the views and then take a decision. So in the military, we follow a system. So before a decision is taken, you have a process of consultation. So each one expresses his or her view. The leader then takes a decision. And thereafter, there are no questions asked. So there is no procrastination, there is no dragging your feet. Then each one puts his shoulder to the task and support the decision that has been taken. You also asked as to how do you disagree with a senior person.
Correct, sir.
That is very important, right? There is a way in which you convey your disagreement. Firstly, you have to be convinced of what you believe, which may not be in sync with what the other person is thinking. So that is one aspect. Second is how and when you convey that disagreement, in the manner in which you convey that disagreement, And if you are able to put across alternate solutions, alternate point of view, and also convey to the person as to why you disagree. When you do all this, I think any good leader would welcome this, and he would be happy that he's or she is listening to a contrarian view. My personal experience, and not in dealing with a person A or B, is so there are some who don't accept disagreements in public, right? Because it's all different personalities, leaders.
Correct.
So you don't want something against you to be heard, even a different view. But if you disagree with somebody in private, I've seen at times that is more acceptable or more welcome. So I think you have to learn this skill as to how you have to disagree. You also cannot be arrogant. You cannot be overconfident.
Correct.
If you are humble, if you have that humility, and then you express your opinion, the other person will never misconstrue it. But if you sort of, with overconfidence, if with some kind of a rudeness, disagree, then that is not taken well.
So always be polite. Always know where to disagree. That's the note that one must take. Sometimes a history teacher, you can't go and tell her saying, "Ma'am, aaj ke liye bas." You want to go.
No, but I must also say, so if you have a view, you must express it, right? We call it professional honesty or professional dishonesty.
Correct.
So whenever there is an issue which is put on the table, which is under discussion, so you should never, if you don't agree with it, please express it.
But in the right setting.
In the right setting.
Correct. Correct.
And never think that, the other person will take this disagreement in an unkind manner.
Of course.
No. Right? You will, it's your duty
Correct.
to express your opinion. And in fact, by doing so, you are adding great value. You are helping this entire decision-making process. So it's good, not disagree for the sake of disagreement, but if you have a view, I always felt you must express it, and I did it in my career. And it didn't sort of harm me, I must say.
It did harm you. It didn't harm you.
It didn't. It didn't.
Didn't.
Did not.
Did not harm you. Okay. And if I may, sir, you have also, apart from India, served overseas. You have served in Eritrea. You served in Ethiopia. And whilst you were serving there, you would have noticed that we have, and in your tenure as well, we have given so many troops to the United Nations peacekeeping forces. So I.I.M.U.N started out as a model United Nations organization and then changed into a movement to United Nations organization. One of the things that I've seen about the UN, its vision is very nice. The idea to unite the world is most appreciable and should be done in many a way. But at the same point in time, so the United Nations has been unable to bring conclusive, been able to bring conclusion on Russia-Ukraine, on so many disputes across the world. And as Indians, we continue to supply these troops out there. My question is, sir, do you think that we should be putting our lives on the line for an organization which does not even give us a permanent member status in the Security Council? Or do you think that we should, of our own accord, like how we sent the IPKF for the LTTE and many other cases as well, should we utilize that route?
So there are two parts of what you just spoke. One is United Nations as effective as we would want it to be?
Correct.
Or what needs to be done to make it more effective in terms of reforms, membership? So I leave this part out because, it's a vast topic. But your second question, if that be so, then why are we contributing to United Nations peacekeeping missions, right? That's what I'll focus on. The Indian Army or the Indian Armed Forces started contributing to the United Nations peacekeeping forces in 1950 during the Korean War. And ever since, we have close to 2.5 lakh soldiers who have taken part in different United Nations peacekeeping operations. Now, these largely are basically to stabilize areas where there is violence, where there is peace. So these have helped. Our contribution to the UN peacekeeping have helped nations in these troubled areas a great deal to bring in peace. That is one aspect. Second, it has helped our country because when you operate alongside soldiers from other militaries, other armies, you learn from each other. You also utilize this opportunity to export your culture, to sort of project or showcase your soft power. To give you an example, when our battalion soldiers go on UN peacekeeping operations, as part of physical training, we teach other soldiers, other countries yoga. So it's a good method, good medium of exporting our culture, our soft power, and also make good friends. The countries in the neighborhood, we assist them in training for United Nations peacekeeping operations. So that's another, I would say, takeaway or a benefit. So I would feel, leaving aside, I mean, what must be done to the United Nations, the contribution of the Indian Armed Forces to peacekeeping operations must continue, and it's a good method. It is also part of military diplomacy. It helps you to enhance your global outreach. And our soldiers, by virtue of our conduct, our basic values, ethos, are most welcome. They are greatly appreciated, revered, unlike soldiers from certain other countries, because our nature is such,
We're more welcoming, anyways.
yes, absolutely.
And easily amiable.
Yes, we assimilate all
Assimilate.
cultures, so you're right.
Yes. So, what you said about our military diplomacy, it's very important overseas, like you've mentioned. But, sir, within the country, sometimes military diplomacy and diplomacy fails. I've seen this in a small way in Srinagar. At my level, I don't know about the military part of it, and I don't know about the diplomatic part of it. But in my case, just a small anecdote, so that just to put things into perspective. I spoke about how, as an organization, we try to spread the idea of India, sir, as you would know. But outside India is one thing, but within our own country, in Bombay, it's very well. In a Delhi, in a Bangalore, a Kolkata, it's very well to do these programs, to talk like this. But when we go to Srinagar, sir, and I've been going for the last 10 years, I've been trying to speak to them about India, about how India is an inclusive nation, how it's a land of opportunities, etc. There's a young girl who worked at I.I.M.U.N. and for 3-4 years. She's part of the volunteers, just like the people who are wearing the white kurta and standing in the aisles. She was 16 when she joined the organization, and I knew her since. She worked at the organization. While she was in I.I.M.U.N., she was okay. She said, yes, India is a place which is giving me so many opportunities, etc. So then the war broke out. Operation Sindoor was conducted. And at that juncture, the girl wrote to me and on social media saying, India should not have retaliated. We will be killing innocent lives out there. An eye for an eye will make the world blind. And then she said, why are all Indians like this? And that was a generic statement. And this girl, so just to put this into context, received a full scholarship to study in a university because of the organization, wrote a thank you letter, was very deeply grateful, and then eventually came back and said, but you Indians. So, sir, we've, at least in this myopic example, out of the 10 cases, in 7 or 8 cases, we have been unable to integrate them per se to mainstream. How do you think civil society, organizations such as ours, or whether it be young people who are sitting out here and will be listening to you, how do you think they should approach the Srinagar conundrum, given the fact that despite how much ever one tries to do, sometimes one feels that, look, 7 out of 10, this is the result. So should we soldier on for the 3 out of 10? Or do you think that, this is not our job, let somebody else do it? Because sometimes we get that feeling saying, itna kuch kiya, and then eventually when it comes to that time of you standing up, you are saying, you Indians did so and so.
Right, I think that's a very important, very relevant and a critical question. Let me say that things are changing fast, right? notwithstanding the statistics 7 out of 10 that you're quoting. Things are fast changing. I have been visiting Kashmir. I have served in Kashmir, J&K for what, 10 to 12 or 14 years of my entire military life. I have seen things that were there 40 years back and what things are now. So the kind of, shall I say, economic development that is taking place, the kind of openness, right, which is, because you see now cafes, you see cinema halls, you see boys and girls, moving on the streets of Srinagar, Lal Chowk, and the rest of it. There's a lot of positivity. There are a lot of opportunities. Of course, you have odd incidents such as 22nd April, Pahalgam, and the rest of it. But in general, there is a lot of positivity. Now, how do you bring about this change in mindset? What you said is right. Still people. So first, I feel that when I say we Indians, we don't have to be cynical. We have to believe that Kashmiris are part of us, and there has to be no cynicism, just like what because especially post Pahalgam, or just before Sindoor, what happened, the way the people, the way the youth of that area came out, protested, right, at different levels. So I felt that there was a genuine desire for peace. They are yearning for peace. They have realized what is the futility of violence, what is the futility of terrorism. And the general sense from the ground is that they want to get on with life and not get caught up in this rigmarole of violence, terrorism, support, etc., etc. Right? So we don't have to be, or we shouldn't be cynical. We must accept that there is a desire on their part. And it is not only while you're sitting there in Srinagar, but elsewhere. Right? So we have our friends, children, brothers, sisters from Kashmir studying all over. Right? So there cannot be we have had some instances which I don't think is correct. Now, when will this change take place? In mindset, it will take time. May not be a generation, may not be 10, 15 years. So this, somebody talking, because it is there in somebody's mind based on the past. So things cannot, this mindset can't change overnight. Everybody is trying hard. It will happen, but we'll have to be patient. So odd examples such as this, we should not be overly worried about. Instead, see as to how do you bring about economic development, infrastructure, tunnels, railway lines, opening of AIMS, opening of IIT. These are on one side, but the emotional integration is as important, right? Which we need to focus on, and that is where I think the military comes in, right? We have a sort of pan-Kashmir footprint, if you like. We integrate, we do a lot of things. We run schools for the Kashmiris, we get Kashmiri children here to various metros, organize tours from there, tours for them, ensure integration, and likewise.
So mainstream schools, and I'm glad you touched upon what the army does out there, because I've seen it firsthand.
Yeah.
I have interacted with the corps commanders out there, and I know the kind of work that is happening on ground. So because this will be viewed by a lot of principals, and there are very many who are teachers and principals who are there as well, do you think some more exchange programs from private schools, for example, of them going, because one of the things that I found, our organization, you'll be happy to know, out of the 4 people who lead I.I.M.U.N, I'm about 22, so I can't qualify, though I would like to believe I'm yet 22. But the 4 people who lead the organization, 1 out of the 4 actually is from Kashmir. And he was once a participant, has gone on to now lead the organization, and he's in charge of our operations across. But so I know that there are many Kashmiris who want to stand out, who want to do things for the country. But I've seen that boy, his closest friends are some of the ones who are standing in the aisles today are his closest friends, and that's how the emotional bond, like you spoke about, has been made. What is your message to school principals who feel that sometimes, going to Kashmir, they'll say, Rishabh, London hai to theek hai, going to Bangalore is okay, going to some other place is okay, but what would your message be in terms of safety for a school principal who's deciding whether or not to start an exchange program with, say, a school in Kashmir?
No, my message loud and clear would be have no apprehensions whatsoever in terms of safety, etc. Your children will find it a very enjoyable experience. Besides the state being a paradise in terms of natural beauty, endowments, etc., you'll find the people very warm, the culture there very friendly. So I think this exchange is a good idea. I know of some groups, especially in Pune, who do this very frequently. You've been doing it.
Right, sir.
I think the more we have this sort of cross exchange of students understanding each other better,
Yes.
it will only contribute and facilitate, our emotional bonding,
bond.
integration much better. It's a very important thing. The more it happens at the grassroots level, at the level of young boys and girls, the better it is, because you are the future generation, right? Guys like us are history. I mean, we are now down the hill, but so it is important for young boys and girls to realize this and take it forward.
But see, youth without experience is nothing, and therefore it's the experience of people such as yourself that guides the organization. But one of the things that I must draw on from your experience, you've commanded 12 lakh people as the chief of the Indian Army. Now, when we're dealing with 10 people in our school project, if we don't like one, it becomes difficult in order to get everybody together. There would be certain things that would hold all of these people together. Of course, it's the love for the nation and the cause that they are serving. But I've seen the camaraderie between people from Kerala, people from, say, the Northeast, and people from Punjab, all three of them coming together, and all three having the same vision, the same ideals, the same discipline, the same standard, despite there being a language barrier. The only other organization, if I may say, is the RSS, where I've seen something like this, where people are this disciplined, but they don't have the numbers like you have. The numbers that you have are unparalleled. So how do you foster that kind of discipline, that kind of camaraderie and bonhomie, especially when there are people with so many different mindsets, so much of baggage that they would be coming along? How do you deal with that, and how do you get that discipline, that camaraderie amongst the ranks?
So when we say that our country epitomizes unity in diversity, right? I think army is a good reflection of this sort of phenomenon, wherein in the military, in the army, you have soldiers from all religions, speaking different languages, you live together, you dine together, you diet if required or when called upon. So, and some of you may be aware, in our army units, which comprises about 800,000 soldiers, we have what is called as a Sarva Dharma Sthal. So in the same building, you will have a mosque, you will have a church, you will have a gurdwara, you will have a temple. Right? So there is nothing. So if I come from a unit where there are 6 soldiers, the religion of the soldiers becomes my religion. So in my unit, I have 6 soldiers, I know their scriptures, I go to Gurdwara Sahib. So if, just like in a unit, if there are Muslim soldiers, you will go to a mosque, join them in the prayers, and vice versa. So for us, religion, it is irrespective of what religion, what language, what culture you come from, you all work together. So national integrity is another important thing. It's a value which we cherish. And because at the end of the day, when you go to war, and if there is a need for somebody to give you blood, it doesn't really matter whether this blood is from a person of A religion or B religion or C religion, right? So I think this is an example, I think the armed forces and the army in particular, of secularism, national integrity, unity in diversity. And this is what I think I would urge all the young people. Please don't get distracted by all the noise that happens around you, right? We as good Indians must remain united, and that is what is good for the country.
And So just to quickly add, all the three colors of the tricolor, all the four colors of the tricolor actually make the tricolor. You remove any one of them, then it's not, it's not necessarily the Indian flag. And the three primary colors, which sometimes get lost in the noise. One should not forget that all three are equally important per se. And what you've said in the Indian Army, I've seen that being upheld. But sir, when it comes to discipline, that's another thing that I have learned firsthand again, the anecdote that I shared as well. Sometimes we feel, and at least I yet feel, I try to get up at 4:30 in the morning, but on some days, there is that feeling that instead of 4 a.m., if it's 4:18, 4:20, it is yet okay. But I have never seen in my interactions, my life, and whenever I've stayed with them and understood from them, anybody in the Indian Army, right from Lieutenant General Kalon, who we spoke about, all the way to General Malik or whoever it is, or late General Rawat, whenever the interactions took place and whenever even I interacted with them or stayed, I could sense that when they would give a time, they would stick to it and they would always be there. Sir, how to maintain that discipline? This is a personal question as well. How to maintain that discipline of that 4 a.m. not ever becoming 4:18?
So one is discipline, and the second is self-discipline.
Self-discipline then.
So
Sir.
I feel the discipline can be sort of imposed, can be enforced, which sometimes the schools have to do, and which is fair. Because enforcing discipline is, I feel, is the first step to become self-disciplined.
Sorry to interject, sir.
Yeah.
Really sorry. But sir, स्कूल तक तो ठीक है क्योंकि 8 बजे की स्कूल होती है, 8:30 की स्कूल होती है, सर पहुंच जाते हैं. Otherwise, you get a bad remark. At least in school, we used to get a bad remark. I don't know. You guys yet get a bad remark? Yeah. So compulsory होता है, sir. But once you finish school and once you get into college, then I've seen this, especially at a young adult level, etc., that the self-discipline sometimes wanes. And you know, all these motivational speakers and they give talks, but I know those are talks. That's why I'm asking you how to get that self-discipline per se.
So there are 2-3 aspects to it. One is to train yourself, right? And self-discipline is about doing the right things, getting into a routine in life. It must become a habit. So for something to become a habit, you have to do it regularly. And once you start doing things regularly, maybe getting up, doing physical activity, leaving aside some me time, doing some meditation in some cases. So if you have a regulated, and in the military we say a regimented life, it only helps. You will be able to organize yourself better. You will spend your time, utilize your time correctly. The common reference is, but yes, there's no time. No, I don't think that's the correct understanding. So if 24 hours in a day is a long period. I feel you can do so many things and do so many things well. If you organize yourself well, if you are self-disciplined, you lead a more fulfilling life. You'll realize your efficiencies, your outcomes better. At the end of it, you'll sleep well. So that's a very important aspect of life as you grow up, I feel.
So in some people I've seen this, like I've heard of Virat Kohli, of a footballer Lionel Messi. All of these people are also very disciplined, and they've been disciplined right from the time that they've gotten actively into sport. But so there is adolescence, and during adolescence and teenage years, sometimes 18, 19, 20 or slightly younger or slightly older, there are a lot of distractions, and therefore the self-discipline, like you spoke about. Of course, there is the reason why it's called self-discipline. But is there anything apart from any external thing that can help us in making sure that we are disciplined? Of course, you spoke about maintaining a schedule and things like that. But one of the things, what I was trying to hint at, sir, is that the people that we surround ourselves with, the things that we consume on the internet, what we are seeing, and is fundamentally what I believe what we become. So do you think that that also plays a huge role in terms of the self-discipline part of it?
Yes, it does. So what kind of environment you grow in, what kind of environment surrounds you, even at home. So what value systems you have, what value systems you imbibe, I think it's all a combination of what makes you I would say, a self-disciplined person. So creating, making good friends, having a right environment, if possible, you be a sort of role model to them and do it things. Don't wait for somebody else to do it. As an individual, if you want to become a good person, good human being, uh, enjoy life better. So it is not as if by being self-disciplined you will not enjoy life.
Correct.
You can do all the good things in life. Maybe once in a while, chill out or go to a movie or time spend time with friends. All this is part of that
Life.
package
Right.
and being self-disciplined. So there are. It is not as if. I mean, there can be sort of cheat days, like you say. There can be occasions where you let your hair down. That is again very important.
Right.
So it is not as if it's all sort of you constrain yourself, you tie down yourself. No, I think that's an incorrect understanding. In general, you must regulate your life.
You can be self-disciplined and you can have fun. That is what you are saying.
Because
And-
at
right.
the end of it, you realize then you are in control. You are in charge of yourself. You will feel good about yourself. Rather than, at times, some of us wonder why is life, going astray? Because you're not in control of things.
Correct.
Without being philosophical, I think by becoming self-disciplined, that will help you to make a much, much better person.
And so you spoke about role models in this, and I feel role models are a huge part of shaping who we become. The role models that we see, the role models that we aspire to be. So I grew up in a time where it used to take 100 balls in order to get off strike. My role model, so to say, when I was growing up was Rahul Dravid. And he used to leave maximum balls for all those people who follow cricket, and for the ones who don't, I'll explain it a little more. He used to leave maximum balls outside the off stump. Today, it is the day and age of going way outside the off stump and hitting the ball from there to a reverse sweep. The idea that Test cricket has given way to T20 cricket, that everything is instant gratification, that success has a new definition, that being cool is very different from what it used to be earlier. For them, when I interact with the ones in the organization and when I interact with them as well, the definition of coolness has changed, sir, because role models have changed. I wanted to ask you this, sir, who was your role model? That is one part of the question. And the second is, how should they choose a role model?
That's an interesting one. So let me say, in my case, I mean, it may not be fashionable to say that I didn't have a role model, but I would rather say that I had mentors, right? And for most of you would understand what is the difference between a role model and a mentor. A role model is something which is distant, right? Which you do not directly connect with, as against a mentor. Mentor is a person who you are in constant contact with, who had a direct impact on what you do. He can be a support system, he will guide you, who will correct you, and who sort of monitors your progress, how you do. So in my case, I've had throughout my military career and as I grew up, mentors at different stages. So in the military life, you had a mentor. Now, I mean, and that mentor need not be somebody like Rahul Dravid or a very known person, but somebody who you watch closely and you felt that, look, here is a person. So maybe a mentor is a role model at a sort of much, much lower sort of rung. So I've had mentors, and they have been a great, great guiding lights, guiding force. They have been inspirational, and they have motivated me. So yeah, to answer your question, so a role model doesn't come to my mind, but mentors at
Mentors.
different stages in life.
And how does one choose a mentor? How does one choose a mentor or role model when you are when you are growing up and in a very impressionable age, where your prefrontal cortex is not developed, where you are an adolescent yet, how does one choose a role model or mentor? Because the current role models and mentors that we get to see on screen, and I take it up sometimes with the people who are making all this cinema and all of that, saying, look, whom are you putting up on screen and what are you showing? Then everyone looks at me and says, Rishabh, but you become old now. So the idea that cinema is now reflecting very different kind of role models, and therefore sometimes the choices, the life choices that are made subconsciously, they're the smartest, so they know what choice to make, when to make it, but subconsciously, because they're impressionable, what are the qualities, if not how to choose, but what are the qualities that they should look for in a mentor or a role model?
Right. So now, I'll transgress slightly.
Right.
I feel in any person, or for any person, any individual to be a good leader, and especially it is relevant for young boys and girls that are here. I feel there are 3 or 4, in fact, attributes that each one of you must try and imbibe or develop. And I call them 4 C's. The first C is character, the second is competence, the third is conduct, and fourth is commitment. Right? So not directly related to what you asked, but so anybody who has these 4 C's, I feel must be a good sort of guideline for you to make him a mentor. Character, and I'll spend just 15 seconds on each. Character, I feel, is a core attribute in a person. Character is something that reflects in your daily actions and what activities, what you do, behavior. Character is also something which will help you to choose between doing the right thing and doing the winning thing. These are 2 different things, right? It will also help you to choose between doing the harder right than the easier wrong. So I feel character must be a core attribute that each of you young boys and girls sitting here must imbibe. Second is competence. So competence is about learning, skilling yourself, and accepting that there is more to learn in life, in whatever chosen profession you have. So it is your quest for excellence. Your conduct, I think it encompasses 3 things. One is teamwork. You have to be a good team member. You may be brilliant individually, but like I say, in a team, in a good team or as a leader, I am not looking for gladiators. I am looking for members who are committed, who are good. I also say that in a group, one is to make yourself indispensable, because you're so good. But I look at it differently. In a group, you must make yourself wanted. People must want you around them rather than say, ki nahi, isko to dur rakho. You may be very, so teamwork. Then is empathy as part of conduct and self-discipline. And the last is your commitment to the organization, commitment to the cause, commitment to what you believe is correct. So I feel in a person, if you have these 4 things, I think that's a good guideline, which I thought, when you have to select a mentor. And please remember these 4 things and try and build on them as you move forward. There will be challenges in life, you'll fall, but you have to each time fall, get up, look at them as opportunities. So, failures
No.
are.
Yeah, sorry. You were saying sorry? Sir? No.
No, I said failures are a natural this thing. They're a way to progress, learn from each, such setbacks. So you have to learn to face setbacks. You will not always be victorious.
Right, and sometimes one of the things that I picked on what you said is that it's not always the ones the winning decision that you have to make. Sometimes the right decision may not be the winning decision. Sometimes what is very glamorous may not be what is right for you. And just a small something, the reason why we started this 10th edition with Sir, and I'm so glad that you've come for this, is because what we see on our screens is always good content, is content where people are trying to give you advice or gyan, if I may, and they are telling you to do things which in real life they may not actually practice at all. And they're giving you everything from relationship advice to motivation on self-discipline, but most of those people are actually not disciplined at all. And knowing them, I can tell you that there's a big difference between real influencers and real influencers. The people who actually move and shake and do things in our country are actually self-disciplined from just the ones who look glamorous on Instagram or on YouTube. So I'm so glad that sir, you mentioned these 4 things, and you mentioned about the tough decisions and the difficult route sometimes. My second last question quickly is, because I want to take 1 or 2 from them as well, is a thing that is very common, which is mental health, anxiety. And I know this because in my own household, I've seen people getting anxious. But at the same point in time, I also do feel that there is a difference between depression and between a bad breakup or low marks in school. Otherwise, I would have perennially been depressed. The idea that today mental health is also becoming a fashion fad, in a way, is what some people believe. So in the Indian army, if I were to ask you, ऐसे तो कभी नहीं हुआ होगा that Pakistan is firing or China is firing and the soldier says, today let's not indulge in battle because I'm not feeling up to it. So, I mean, you can correct me on this understanding of mine, but mental preparedness would have to be there for those who are serving in the army. So, what is the army's take, or your take, sir, on the issue of mental health?
Right. So, in your remark, you did mention, each one of us will have a bad day.
Right.
In an organization, there will be situations where, things may not be going right. You may have adverse situations you may be encountering for a number of reasons, whether, I think that is where your teamwork comes in. Right? You look at any walk of life, I find teamwork very, very, very important because that is what defines your collective outcome. So even if a member of your team, right, is not up to it for some reason or the other on that particular day, but his commitment, contribution to the cause or the objective of the team is something very, very important. How does mental well-being come? It is also by your training, by your becoming tough, by camaraderie. That is what, again, we pay great attention to. So what is it that motivates you to still continue, climb some great mountain so if you have colleagues, your friends, your compatriots around you, you look at them, right? And that is what actually inspires you. So camaraderie and teamwork is again important for us. As part of a training in the military, putting yourself under tough situations, under tough conditions, stretching your own capabilities, be it in terms of physical capabilities, be it in terms of mental stress, and likewise. Human body it's great. You have to just test yourself in terms of endurance, running marathon. You will be surprised at what you yourself can achieve, unless you do it. So I feel each one of you must challenge yourselves, challenge your bodies, challenge your mental faculties. Never think that this is something which is beyond me, I can't do it. It could be as simple as becoming more physically fit, right? Have a positive attitude, look at things in a positive manner in life, and this is what I think will always contribute to a good and sound mental health. You have to remain positive, you have to spread positivity. That is again very important.
So even on your off day, even on your the day that you're feeling low, am I correct in understanding that you need to wear your smile and go about doing the task that is given to you, such that
Yeah.
the duty comes first,
True.
and therefore that is something that you would advocate, saying that yes, taking care of yourself is important, but at the same point in time, your duty should not be ignored.
Yeah, and also remember, I think in one of these life lesson books I read somewhere, tough times never last, tough people do. That is one. Second, we say in the military, one of our para commando units, they have a tagline. When the going gets tough, the tough get going. So, I mean, there is never a bad, it's transitory. This too shall pass. So all of us go through bad phases, but this too shall pass, and there is brightness ahead. So you got to remain positive, and that is where good friends help you, good relationships help you.
Or listening to this conversation again, and this particular answer will help you. That is for sure. But I'm going to come to a small rapid fire towards the end. These have borrowed from a Bollywood director who runs a popular talk show, at the end of which he gives a small hamper. We've also got a small hamper. It's not as big, it's not as fancy as his, but we've got a small hamper. So the first thing that comes to your mind when I say the following words, when I say woman chief of Indian Army staff, is it possible?
Yes, in due course, I hope and we hope that we'll have women in the military are doing great. So there's no reason why they should not or they cannot rise to be at the helm.
When I say Pakistan, what's the first word?
Well, it's a complex situation,
Right.
complex relationship. They've got to change their mindset, their approach, and then things will improve. Otherwise, they'll always be at the receiving end of the stick.
China?
Well, China, we need to develop good relations with, right? We have our core issues, right? But yeah, it is a mix of cooperation, competition, but avoid confrontation unless sort of it is
Yes, yes.
absolutely inescapable.
When I say the Indian Army, the first word that comes to your mind?
Uh-huh. So, when you talk of Indian Army, it is service before self.
Correct.
That is one. Second, I think it is the last bastion. It is something which will never fail you. It is also to do with unity and diversity, which I mentioned. And for those of you who want to choose army as a career, I would say it's a way of life.
It's a way of life. Yeah. When I say youth,
Youth. Uh-huh. So to me, youth are the torch bearers of the future. They are the country's future. For the youth, sky is the limit. Dream big, have confidence, and chase your dreams.
when I say India, that is Bharat.
So first thing that comes to my mind is to say unstoppable,
Unstoppable.
right? Second, I'll say Mera Bharat Mahan. Each of one has to have great pride
Right.
in our culture, in our value systems, tremendous potential. We are unstoppable. We are on a growth trajectory. We must continue that. And the youth here have a great, great role to play in contributing to our country's or India's growth story.
And so the last one is when I say I.I.M.U.N. or India's International Movement to Unite Nations, the organization, sir, what is the first thought that comes to your mind?
Right. So I think this is a difficult one, but so it is purposeful, right? It is positive. It is being passionate. A lot of promise, tremendous potential, a lot of dynamism, a lot of energy, and you guys are doing a great job. My compliments, and wish you all the very best in what you do.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. It is. It is only possible because of conversations like these that we are able to profile real role models, which are very different from real role models, like I said. Before we let you go, sir, is it okay if we take a couple of questions from the audience?
For sure.
Right.
But let me also mention to you, so each time you go for a fireside chat like this, normally the moderator tells you that, look, sir, this is what we're going to discuss on. But today Rishabh stumped me because in the rapid fire, he gave me a different set of questions and he came up with something which was totally out of syllabus. But that's fine.
But sir, you hit the ball out of the park. So and the idea that sir was kind enough, I must, because he's mentioned this, even the questions, I digressed and I emphasized on a few questions that I thought were important to be discussed. And I'm very glad that you spoke about it. So there's a reason, I think the people who are sitting in front of us and also the ones who will see this are not just the future of our country, but sir, I believe that 1 billion who are below 35 will shape the world. But sir, it's about shaping those 1 billion also. And as much as I cannot shape them because, I mean, look at me, sir. But the people who can shape them should be the ones who are like you. And therefore, it gives me tremendous honor and privilege. And once again, a huge round of applause for General Manoj Pande for coming and being a part of this. So thank you, sir, for doing it. No, but thank you. Thank you for the question, and thank you, sir, for that. You spoke about sometimes your own interest has to take a back seat. You even sometimes need to reprimand people, but the greatest service should not be done. And therefore, it is service before self. And that is the very motto of the organization that you've led and dedicated all your life to.
Some of you, can you hear me? Yeah, so in the military or in the army, when you say service before self, we believe in what is called the Chetwodian motto, right? And it is like this. It says, the honor, safety, and welfare of your country comes first, always and every time. The safety, welfare, and the comfort of the soldiers you command, that is your team, come next. And your own safety, welfare, and ease come last, always. So that is where, when you look at, if you were to rate, the country is there, your team is the next, and your own self, your comfort, ease, happiness comes the last. So if you believe in these three things, I think then you are in the right space of mind at the right place.
Whatever I say after this will not match up to this. So on this note, I will say that sir, thank you for the service that you have provided to the country and for being a role model for the next generation. Thank you for taking out the time, and thank you, ma'am, for accompanying him and coming here. Before we let you go, there's a small token of appreciation from our end, which Vanchita is just getting. Vanchita, if you can just come and give a small token of appreciation on our behalf, please.